Hey everybody, it is Jason from the Texas Gun Vault 2, and I have two things to talk about today. I have more talk on the ATF Pistol Brace rule and what people think and what they say, because I had a commenter recently give me some really interesting insight and had me think about things from a different perspective that I wanted to share with you. And I also want to talk about some more Mk12 parts. I got the bipod in with the arms adapter. And of course, I already showed you guys the pod lock. I'm going to put that on and put that together. But before we do the Mk12 stuff, I know a lot of you guys will want to know more about the ATF Pistol Brace stuff. And I kind of feel like I'm beating a dead horse on this because we kind of say the same things over and over again. And I kind of feel like some people are just being dragged into this because they're just getting around to getting all the information, hearing all the arguments. But I made the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week, which I was really happy with the interaction that I got and the number of views, considering it's on the Texas Gun Vault 2. Obviously, I'm trying to grow this channel. And I posted over on the main channel a post saying, hey, if you want to watch this video, want to talk about this, see what other people had to say, go check out the video on the Texas Gun Vault 2. And of course, people can comment on that post. And inevitably, I got more comments. Now, I don't know if these people are subscribers or just people that saw the post. And 2 or 3 people, the ATF can't make law. They say it again with exclamation marks and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of shake my head and go, you know, you're right. But they can make rules and regulations that are enforced like law. And people, they say that can't be. Well, you know how many regulatory agencies make rules all the time that no one else cares about? So, for example, the Department of Energy creates rules and regulations on how to transport nuclear waste. Now, those rules and regulations are not law in that Congress specifically passed them, but Congress gave them the authorization to interpret the statutes. And so these bureaucrats can create rules and regulations on the transportation of nuclear material. And guess what? Once they create that rule and go through the rulemaking process, they can undo that rule. They can just go, well, we're going to change our minds now. That we created this rule or said something was okay, we've decided that it's no longer okay. Nobody cares. I don't see people screaming on any websites going, the Department of Energy can't create law, because nobody cares. But this is an issue that affects a lot of people, obviously, in the Second Amendment community, and people act like it's this thing that's way outside the norm. Now listen, I'm not saying it's a good thing that they can do this, but it is the history and tradition in this country that ever since the founding and since, was it 1791, the executive branch has been in charge of regulatory agencies that Congress has funded and authorized, and they can create their own rules and regulations that affect Americans. Now, this is just American tradition, and if you don't like that, there is a process. You get your representatives to rein in that power, or to specifically write the law to exclude them from being able to do certain things. So as long as you are out there, or people are out there going, they can't create law, it doesn't mean that it's true or that it's not what happens in practice. And I'm sorry to break that news to you. You can say that and act like you're super smart and super intellectual and understand the law, but in actuality, you don't. I mean, every department, every agency out there creates regulations. They have opinions, and a lot of them actually affect your life. Many things that you do are affected by the rules that are created by these departments or agencies. So, for example, pharmacies. If you require certain medications, the FDA and the Department of Agriculture, which I think oversees the FDA, they create rules and regulations on the transportation of drugs, how drugs are sold, how pharmacies have to handle them, all this kind of stuff that can affect you getting your medication or how your medication is made. But you don't go online going, the FDA can't create law. we just go, wow, it affects us. Congress gave them the authorization to make these rules and statutes and things, and they're enforced. And they're enforced by the weight of law. That's it. Ta-da! We've been doing it for a long time. If you don't like the system, you can change it. You know, it reminds me about anti-gunners. There's one anti-gunner that, believe it or not, I respect. Now, I don't like him. I think he's completely wrong, but I respect him because he's trying to do it the right way. And that's Gavin Newsom. Now, I think Gavin Newsom is a scumbag, okay? He has run California into the ground. He's tone deaf. He doesn't care about, I don't think he cares about the United States. I don't think he cares about the well-being of the state of California. However, he proposed an amendment to the Constitution that would repeal the Second Amendment. Now, it's not going to go anywhere, and obviously, I don't support that. However, he's doing it the way the Founding Fathers intended. Instead of things being on the books and things in the Constitution and then just completely ignoring them like they do with assault weapons ban. So in my opinion, as long as the Second Amendment is part of the Constitution, you can't ban guns. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, right? You can't ban guns. The gun itself, the firearm itself, you cannot ban it. And I think anti-gunners know it too. But they try to thumb their nose at the Constitution because they'll pass this stuff and go, oh yeah, they'll try to do this weird workaround, but in their heart, they know it's unconstitutional. However, if they repealed the Second Amendment, they could do it. Now, as I said, that amendment is not going to go anywhere to repeal it. But at least Gavin Newsom is going about it the way it's supposed to be. So we would have to have a national conversation. It can't be passed by Congress. An amendment to the Constitution, while it has to be, well, it doesn't have to be. There's two ways of doing it. Most likely, it has to be proposed by, 2/3 of both houses of Congress. But then it goes to the states. And it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. So I think it's like 37 states would have to ratify it, which is a Herculean task. It would never happen. I mean, we have, 26 states now with constitutional carry? They ain't going to get 37 states to repeal the Second Amendment. That ain't happening. But that is the mechanism by which we can have the debate and to have this happen constitutionally. And whether or not you like it, the way our society is set up, the way the administrative state is set up, allows for Congress to fund agencies and organizations to write rules and regulations. Now, those rules and regulations can be, adjudicated in court, but it gives them a broad spectrum and a lot of leeway in the interpretation of the law. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with what that's the way it should be, but it is the way that it is. So just going about it and saying they can't create law doesn't mean they actually can't, okay? You're not smarter than anybody else, and you're not saying anything that, hasn't been said. But then I want to talk about one thing that a very interesting commenter on I think it was on that Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week, stated. It was very enlightening for me because it approached the topic from a different perspective. And the commenter essentially, I'm going to kind of paraphrase what he said. He had mentioned that either he is or used to be in a position in the government that dealt with regulations and rules. It wasn't the ATF, it was something else. And he was talking about how agencies do this all the time. They write opinion letters or they say something's legal and then a few years later, they say it's no longer legal. Maybe they didn't think about it or some aspect of it or something changed or technology changes or something came up. And he's like, it happens all the time. It's not like there's no precedence for this. As I mentioned, like the Department of Energy and the transportation of nuclear materials. I have no doubt, although I'm not an expert in any of that stuff, I'm sure they have certain procedures that maybe as technology changes, they're like, we got to change this rule, and they change the rule. They undo what they've done before. But he said, if they would have, in the very beginning, when they got the initial SB Tactical Brace, and they were asked to evaluate it, and they looked at it and said, no, this is a stock, it turns a gun into an SBR, or an AR pistol or AK pistol into an SBR. This is way back when it entered the market, what, 2010 or whatever? And they said no. Nobody would care. Because everybody would have been like, yeah, nice try. Yeah. Nobody would have cared. Nobody would have batted an eye. Nobody would have said, oh my gosh, the fact they denied the brace from the very beginning is an infringement of the Second Amendment. The ATF can't create law. Nobody would have said that because it just would have been evaluated. It never would have gone on the market, and that's it. Nobody, and he's right, because from that perspective, I mean, I'm just asking you, go back in time and put yourself in your shoes or somebody's shoes 10, 15 years ago when SB Tactical submitted the pistol brace, the original design for evaluation by the ATF. And if the ATF would have said no at that time, would there have been all this fight? Would there have been all these people that are passionate about it? Would they have been upset? The answer is no. And it's true if you really think about it, because it wasn't a thing. Everybody probably, or most people, would have looked at that and go, yeah, they're definitely trying to work around the NFA. And while I don't agree with the NFA, it's obviously what it is. But because they became legal, or they got approved, and then they were taken away, now everyone acts like it's a great infringement. But if they would have never been approved in the beginning, it wouldn't have been an infringement. Do you understand what I'm saying? An infringement is an infringement regardless of when it happens. It's not time sensitive. So from that perspective, it changed my thought process. It's like, wow, that kind of backs up what I've been thinking lately. You know, I think the ATF is wrong on this, but when you go back in time in your mind and think, if they never would have approved it on day one, nobody would have cared. Nobody would be filing lawsuits. Nobody would be passionate about it. Nobody would be upset. That was enlightening. I thought that was really enlightening. So that's what I wanted to say about that ATF pistol brace rule. What else is going on? Oh, one other thing before we talk about some Mk12 stuff. I am filming a video this evening. I got all the range footage done on the Clark Custom Long Slide 1911. So I got my bullet point script, my scribble as I call it, all done. So I'll be trying to film this this evening. So if you're a Patreon supporter of my channel, you should be seeing that hopefully in the next couple of days. So let's go through the Mk12 stuff, and then I'll cut the camera, I'll install it, put this all together, and show you the final product. So I did get the Harris Engineering bipod. This is the BRNS, or the SBRN, with a 6 to 9 inch throw. Now, the only thing that I think that they've altered since the original design back in the early 2000s is this knob right here. This is a lot bigger, and it addresses the small cap that it had on it, which was originally knurled, which we're actually going to take off because we're going to put on this pod lock, and that's what this thing initially tried to fix, and I think Harris has tried to fix that, but everything else about the bipod is correct. So it's the one that originally had the stud attachment, and of course we'll be getting rid of that because we have the arms adapter for this. And as I mentioned, that when you're cloning rifles, you have to take into consideration the technology of the time. So Harris today makes bipods that fit right on Picatinny rail, but back in this era they didn't. So if you want to make a clone correct rifle, you have to buy the one that they made and then buy the adapter for it. And that's the kind of fun and joy of clone rifle builds. So technology has advanced. And honestly, the stuff that we can get today that we would consider mid-tier, even like mid-tier scopes today, are better than the highest end scopes were maybe 25, 30 years ago. And, you know, a scope that was $2,000 30 years ago is now comparable to a $500 scope today. I'm just telling you, it's the way it is. It's technology, and as it advances, same thing with like flashlights and optics from China. Yeah, they're not as good as Surefire, and they're not as good as Trijicon, they're not as good as that stuff, but they're way better than the the most advanced stuff of 20 years ago. They really are. Anyway, so here's the bipod. Now we have the adapter, and this arms adapter was really hard to find. I guess it's still in the catalog, and it's out of stock everywhere. So I don't know if everyone bought a whole bunch of these, and then maybe they just don't sell enough for them to make. But I found one place. It's called 2A Fulfillment. In fact, they wrote me a nice note on the receipt, and of course they didn't know who I was. But it says, Jason, thanks for buying 2AF. And they actually sent me some Pez, some candy with this, and a couple of stickers, some swag. So I was happy about that. So they have a Instagram page, 2af.com. I went and followed them, but they only have a few posts. But luckily, they were the only place that had this little guy in stock. So this is the clone correct part for that Harris bipod adapter. And I think we get some instructions with it, maybe. Number 32 throw lever mount for Harris bipod, NSN number 1005-01-574-2195. And get all the information there. Made in the USA, so we will be putting this on the bipod. And now let's take a look at the pod lock. I showed this yesterday, and this one definitely has some instructions. And so here is the pod lock that will go on the bipod as well, and replace that little cap I showed you. I guess I better get out the instructions here. So I'm going to cut the camera now. I'll spend some time probably struggling with this, cursing a little bit. You guys will get to miss all of that fun. And of course I dropped the instructions. And then I will come back to you, show you the bipod, hopefully, and then we will install it on the Mk12 Mod 0 and see how it looks. So I guess I should go ahead and get started. We got some instructions here, all these photos. So let's get started. So I'll be back. Let's see if I can get this thing together. All right, well that was actually a lot easier than I was expecting it to be. I got the arms mount on the top there with the throw lever and the pod lock on. And that actually is a really cool device and definitely a huge upgrade on these Harris bipods. So this is the way that these Mk12s would have been originally issued. Now, I know some people are going to say, I've seen pictures, it's not the right... People could change things out in the field, but this is what they were issued at the time. So, let's go ahead and install this. Make sure I don't have any of the thread locker on the bipod. Let's get this thing mounted. So, hopefully, it'll be super easy. I'll just mount it right to the center of this thing. See if I need to adjust it any. I probably shouldn't. All right, there we go. And let's lock it down. Ooh, that's tight. Man, that is like super tight. So we'll have to see here. Don't want to damage anything. Oh, and there it goes. All right. Yeah, because there are no adjustments on that. Man, that thing is on there. Super tight. But there we go. That is the bipod for it. So, yeah, take a look at that. Now this already heavy rifle is heavier. But of course, being a dedicated marksman's rifle or a special purpose rifle, the weight doesn't matter. So there it is, my bipod. Clone correct. Really happy with how that thing looks and how it turned out. So I can adjust it however I need it. Make sure it's even right now. Lock that puppy down. Yeah, this is really coming together nicely. So what do you guys think? Whether you have any comments about what I was talking about, those rules and regulations, or about this bipod on this Mk12 Mod 0. So let me know what you think in the comment section below, and thanks for always spending your evenings or days or whenever you're watching this with me here in the garage. I kind of feel like I've gotten to know a lot of you, and hopefully you guys feel like you've gotten to know me, and that's the joy of this hobby. So, as always, thanks for watching.